Okay, you see I'm here, not there. So I'm hoping it's not going to throw off anything. New angle. The Israelites this week also felt abandoned, confused, disoriented. And I think the theme of this sermon is Moshe has a really hard job. But I don't think that's just on the surface of Moshe's job. I really want to use his particular leadership challenge to try to understand the work that all of us have of being humans and Jewish humans who live in the world. So there's no doubt that we're living in chaotic times. That already felt true, and then it just keeps the ante keeps upping. Does anybody feel that way? It's just getting worse and worse and crazier and crazier. And in a way, I consistently am trying to preach to this part of ourselves which is enduring. Regardless of what's happening out there, we consistently as people have to deal with what is inside. I've been noticing all week, maybe even for weeks, I've just been trying to control my environment more and more tightly, and that's a reaction to feeling completely out of control. And what I'm noticing in this week's parsha is that my experience, in a way, is mirrored in the Israelites' experience of wandering in the desert. How so? They, as I mentioned in my intro to the Torah, have in some ways a lot of structure in their lives. They're being told by God this new religion, ostensibly, that they're going to practice while they wander through the desert. It has accoutrements, it has priests, it has special clothing, and it all sounds really nice. And at the same time, they are in an entirely new context. Everything about their life has changed, absolutely everything. And even with a new order and a new structure to live inside of, they're absolutely beside themselves with panic. And what we see, especially in chapter 11, which we chanted this morning, the center of our Torah reading was all chapter 11, is that the people manifest their uncertainty in the form of complaint. And they complain about wanting meat. They complain that it was really nice back in Egypt. They miss how nice it was. The food was so delicious. And now all we have is this crummy man. And they say, are we supposed to eat this stuff? I'm sure they didn't even call it stuff. Maybe their word was even ruder. Are we supposed to really eat this stuff for the next unknown amount of time? We're sick of it. It tastes awful. Or if it didn't taste awful in the beginning, it tastes awful now because we've just had so much of it. Which seems like a pretty banal complaint, but I think Moshe and God understand pretty quickly that the thing they're complaining about on the surface is not the real issue. There's a midrash that explains that we doubt that the food was that good in Egypt. But the food in Egypt came free of responsibility. They were slaves, and the food was given to them. And in a way, they were like infants, our midrash says. They were free of any moral obligation in exchange for the food that they were fed. And in the desert, all of the sudden, they're experiencing responsibility and agency and autonomy for the first time. And that is the rude awakening that they feel. So they complain bitterly, they're weeping, they're whining, they're crying. And first of all, God gets really mad and strikes their camp with fire, which just gets them even more upset. And they're crying, and they say, if only we had meat to eat. And God says, okay, you want meat? I'll give you so much meat that it's coming out of your nostrils. There's a children's book called Pinkalicious. I don't know it, it's okay. It's about a little girl who loves pink. And one day, she eats so many pink cupcakes that she becomes pink. The moral of the story being, don't eat so many cupcakes. And sometimes, that's a sweet and gentle way of saying it, but sometimes that which we want is not that which we need. So the Israelites are in this extended classroom that God has created for them, where they're supposed to be learning how to deal with their moral responsibility. And with that comes this complaint: we need meat. And God says, you don't need meat, you want meat. And the way I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you that even meat, which sounds amazing, can make you as sick as you are of the man. So be careful what you wish for. But in another sense, the people are not just wishing for meat, they're wishing for a top-down leader. They don't want to be individually responsible. They want Moshe to tell them what to do. And this is where I really see our contemporary experience mirrored. Because I too want to be told what to do. I feel it in myself. I feel that with uncertainty, I'm very quick to want someone outside of myself to explain to me not just what's going on, but how to deal with it and what to do about it. That temptation seems very human, and we see it mirrored in the people who are looking again and again to Moshe to tell them what to do. But what's remarkable is that Moshe does not take the bait. And you can imagine any experience you've had of leadership is that when you're in a room and people are panicked, the person who steps up and says, I've got a plan, is the one that gets followed. The more uncertain we are, the more tempting it is to follow the person who says, I know what to do. But interestingly, that is not God's vision for the Jewish people. Instead of telling Moshe what to do, God says, I am actually going to share your influence. I'm going to share the fact that you hold responsibility with everybody else. He does this through 70 elders. And those 70 elders are a stand-in for an important lesson that God is trying to teach the people. You each have to be responsible for yourselves. And that is a very hard lesson. And where I really see this playing out the most is actually in Moshe's complaint. Starting in verse 11 of chapter 11, Moshe says, why have you dealt ill with your servant? Why have I not enjoyed your favor? God, why are you punishing me with these people? You have laid the burden of all of them upon me. And then Moshe says, did I conceive all this people? Did I bear them that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a nurse carries an infant? Moshe says to God, why do I have to be a parent to this annoying people? And the thing that I love in this moment is that we really do have a model of leadership in our society that we don't think often enough, and that is the leadership of being a parent. Being a parent is incredibly hard because your goal is not actually to raise people who do exactly what you say. It's to raise people who understand that they are individually responsible for themselves. If you raise your children to be perfectly obedient to you and not to develop their own sense of self, you might have accomplished one goal, but not their fullness. We want our children to grow into adults who take responsibility for their actions and, God willing, who take responsibility for their role in the broader world. And that's the vision that God has for the entire Jewish people. And Moshe understands the burden that's been laid upon him. He is not meant to be the CEO of the Jewish people who says, I got the solution, let's go in this direction. He is the parent. And being a parent is the hardest job that I have ever had. So as we sit with this vision this morning, I want you to remember that when Moshe is struggling with his job as parent, he cries out for help. He says, I cannot do this alone. And Moshe says, God, I really am at my wit's end, I don't know where to go. I'm at the bottom. And God says, you know what you need? You need community. You need other people to share this burden with you. And so I hope that for each of us, when we feel the weight of the burden of responsibility, which it would be false to try to avoid, it would be a mistake to try to avoid, that we reach out to one another, that we reach out to those who can help us feel like we are not carrying our burdens alone, and we have a little bit of faith that God will help us if we only ask for the help that we need. Shabbat Shalom.